Hey folks, thanks for checking out Reigniting Liberty. I'm Deneen Borelli and Dr. Tom Borelli is in the house bringing you the truth in black and white. Well, baby, it is cold outside and it seems to be cold no matter where you are in the US of A. Polar vortex blackouts exposes the Green New Deal fail. That's where we're going today, folks. Green New Deal policies are failing our country, families, businesses. It's making America look like a third world country. No, not look like. It's making America a third world nation when it comes to electricity reliability. Come on, we're so used to flicking that switch, making sure the lights come on or the heat come on, no problem. Well, yes, it's true, folks. President Biden and the Democrats' energy transformation is putting our electricity reliability at risk. And all is well when the temperature is it's in the winter, when it's a normal winter, not a freezing cold winter, or when it's summertime and it's not abnormally a hot summer, within a comfortable range, a normal range, whatever you want to call that. But when we hit temperatures that are outside of those ranges, either hot or cold, that is a problem. It causes a huge problem for our power grid because it can't handle the demand for heat or for cold air. And Americans are hit with blackouts or brownouts. I mean, we're seeing it in the news now. Yep. The recent polar vortex that slammed the U.S. over Christmas once again exposed the weakness, the fragility of our power grid, the vulnerability to weather extremities. Blackouts happened in Tennessee, North Carolina, Kentucky, and in other areas covering huge parts of the country where consumers were advised to cut back on usage, Dr. Tom, cut back on power use. Well, folks, in this episode of Reigniting Liberty, we're going to bring you the truth in black and white about Biden and the Democrats' Green New Deal policies that are putting our electricity reliability at risk, Dr. Tom.
Great introduction, Deneen, and it is oh so true. Our power grid is fragile. It's fragile, and it's fragile actually by design. This is what the Democrat plan is at this point, is to ram that Green New Deal down our throats regardless of the consequences. And as you just mentioned, we just saw some very interesting and very problematic consequences of not having enough power when you need it. And that is oh so important. It's not that important when we have mild temperatures either way, but it's very important when it gets very, very cold. Because at the end of the day, very cold houses could lead to very adverse health effects. And that is a problem for many Americans, and especially elderly Americans. But this is by design. You would think the Democrats, or you would think anybody with any sanity, would want to make sure your power grid is up, running, secure, and can handle extremes. But no, yes, we're not. And you put it correctly, we are now a third world nation when it comes to the reliability of our power grid. And you mentioned the states, Tennessee, North Carolina, Kentucky, they had turned off the juice. They turned off the juice with rolling blackouts when it was very, very cold. And that is very dangerous.
Yes.
You know, what's most striking about all of this is that this is not a secret. This is not a secret. The fragility of our power grid, the vulnerability of America's power grid is not a secret. Power grid operators, those who are in charge of regulating and watching and controlling our power grid, they are aware and have communicated over the last few months that we may not have enough electricity under extreme weather conditions. This is not a secret. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, known as FERC, they had a winter reliability assessment, and they released this report in October, and they warned about power shortages in extreme weather conditions. Hello, that's when you need power under extreme weather conditions, right? You don't need it
Exactly.
when it's 75 degrees, right? You need it when it's minus 30. You need that heat. FERC knew that. FERC is the federal agency that regulates interstate transmission of electricity, natural gas, and oil, and also regulates hydropower projects and natural gas terminals. So that's the federal regulatory authority here. In its winter report, FERC identified areas of the country that are vulnerable to power shortages and supply risks. That is, there's not enough power to keep electricity on when it's needed. Imagine that. The federal regulatory agency in charge of regulating the energy infrastructure knows under extreme conditions we could run out of juice. They know it. What they do about it? Nothing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So this is from a report on FERC study from a publication called Utility Drive. Quote, utilities and grid operators across the United States have more than adequate supplies for normal winter conditions, according to the report. All is well, we're okay. But here's the kicker here. Quote, but we also know, based on the last several years, that extreme weather can occur quite frequently and all over the place in different forms. And obviously, extreme weather can wreak havoc. FERC Chairman Richard Glick said, obviously, it could wreak havoc. Extremely cold weather? What are you doing about it, Mr. Glick?
Yeah, that's the
Right?
question.
Oh, yeah, there's a problem if it's way too cold. Don't worry about it. What are you doing about it? Nothing. The story noted that the loss of coal-fired power plants are, quote, really starting to bite now in reliability and consumer cost, according to one of FERC's commissioners. Oh, so the removal of coal from our power grid is resulting in power shortages and increased costs. They know this. What are they doing about it? Nothing. It's just unbelievable. This is the problem. The Green New Deal policies are forcing out coal-fired power plants and, in some cases, nuclear power as well. And the loss of power from these sources is resulting in energy deficits. Energy deficits equals blackouts. Renewable energy sources, such as wind and solar, that are being pushed by the Green New Deal can't fill the void because these sources of energy, wind and solar, guess what? They're dependent on the weather. If the wind doesn't blow and if the sun doesn't shine, you're not getting energy. And oh, by the way, we do not have the technology to store energy in batteries in massive scale to collect that energy so then you could use it when you want it. Sun's not there, you're not getting any energy. Wind's not blowing, you're not getting any energy. Hence, renewable energy is not ready for prime time. And another part that's really important here is that renewable energy represents a very small percent of energy that supplies our power grid, about 12% nationally, wind and solar, only 12%. Where's the other 88% coming from, right? The ones that they're dialing down.
Right,
So
exactly.
none of this is a surprise. Politicians know it, the regulators know it, Nothing's being done. All they do is issue, as Deneen would say, white papers, book reports,
Yep.
but nothing happens.
And you'll like it.
And you'll like it. Turn down that heat and you'll like it.
Yeah. I mean, you went to Michigan State, and how cloudy was it usually? How often did you see the sun when you were there for going to,
East Lansing is in what they call a cloud belt, quote, cloud belt. And I think there might have been like a 2-week, 10-day length of time where there was no sun to be seen.
Right. I mean, come on. Depending on the different parts of the country as well. But again, when you mentioned it's a 12% with renewables. And look, the Borellis say do it all. Do it all, but don't pick winners and losers. And that is what our government and our representatives and our president, that's what they're doing. They're picking winners and losers.
And the American people are the losers.
We're losing. We are losing.
When you have blackouts, you're losing.
Right. So here we have the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, known as NERC. So you talked about FERC, and this is NERC, N-E-R-C. It's a nonprofit group charged with the goal to ensure the reliability of the North American bulk power system, warned about blackouts this winter. So NERC's recent Winter Reliability Assessment Report warned power shortages could happen in different regions and are under different regions that are under extended cold periods.
i.e. winter.
Yeah, i.e. it's cold. Right. Here's a quote. Under normal or mild winter weather, the bulk power system, BDS, has a sufficient supply of capacity resources. However, some areas are highly vulnerable to extreme and prolonged cold weather and may require load shedding procedures to maintain reliability. Translation, Dr. Tom?
Load shedding. Hint,
Americans, Translation, Americans are screwed, essentially. Screwed big time. If we have a really cold winter, and this is what we've witnessed the last few days, there is not enough power, and blackouts will occur. And we just mentioned a couple of states that did have blackouts. So why, Dr. Tom? Why? The report mentions the loss of coal and nuclear power in parts of the country. That is why. These power sources are being pushed out. They're being phased out by this Green New Deal nonsense, these policies that favor renewable sources of energy. So then there are the subsidies that artificially lower the cost of renewable energy sources. That is a factor as well. So the other is renewable energy mandates, Dr. Tom. That is, thou shalt use X amount. You will use X amount or X percent of renewable energy by X date. I mean, we see this happening across the country, and this is forcing and increasing the use of wind and solar energy, which we just laid out. They're both not ready for prime time. And I mentioned Tom went to Michigan State, and hello, you say you didn't see the sun for like forever when you were there. I mean, this is not normal. It's not right. It's not right. And then there's natural gas, Dr. Tom. Natural gas is having trouble filling the void because of efforts blocking construction of natural gas pipelines, the infrastructure that is necessary to carry the natural gas to businesses, to homes, and the concerns that are raised by both FERC and NERC about our feeble power grid happened over Christmas, which was just a few days ago. So it's in the news. People are seeing it, feeling it firsthand, Dr. Tom, the consequences of the Green New Deal, the failures of the Green New Deal policies.
Well, no, we witnessed it live and in color, let's say, and especially those people who had the consequence of having no heat, during this extreme weather event.
Yes.
And that's what happened recently. Polar vortex covered the nation, and as a result, there was a shortage of power in a number of states. Again, this was all predictable. This wasn't rocket science at all. They knew this would happen. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Quote, Tennessee is experienced forced rolling blackouts after power generation facilities in the state were overwhelmed by demand due to below zero temperatures. Below zero temperatures, not enough power to carry or to generate electricity. That was from Tennessee. Quote,
Right.
The Nashville Electric Service said customers can expect 10-minute power outages every 1 to 2 hours. It also asked customers not to use big appliances like washing machines or dishwashers when they do have power. We did say
Wow.
third world nation now, didn't we?
Yeah.
It's cold, you can't turn on the dishwasher. Never mind, it's a holiday season, right? Might have
And
people over the house, might be serving a big dinner. Don't worry about it.
right. Not our problem.
Not our problem. Unbelievable.
And I'm sure they're tracking. If they're putting out these announcements, I'm sure there's a way that they can determine if you're using more than you should be using.
Well, that's coming next. They'll just dial it down. Of course, they'll just shut it off. Like these rolling blackouts, you don't have a choice. But if maybe your house has more power than another house, because Dean maybe used the dishwasher, you're going to get in trouble. Maybe there'll even be a knock at the door. In this country these days, anything is possible.
Nothing surprises me anymore.
Right. So in addition to Tennessee, Kentucky was also hit by blackouts. And this is from a local paper there. Quote, extreme cold temperatures and subsequent high energy demands have pressured local energy grids, and LG&E and KU are asking customers to reduce energy consumption as they perform rolling blackouts. So turn it down and we're going to shut it off anyway, essentially.
Yep.
This is what the customers were asked to do, right? Customers were asked to take the following conservation actions. Adjust your thermostat to the lowest comfortable setting. Turn it down. Right? Comfortable,
Wow.
it's cold, right? Turn it down a few degrees. Reduce reliance on other heating sources. So turn down your thermostat, but don't use an electric heater, I guess. Wear extra layers such as a sweatshirt or sweater. This reminds me of the old Jimmy Carter days.
I
Remember he
was
said,
I was just going to say
he
that.
said, put on your little sweater and turn down the temperature.
I can't believe
Add
this.
extra blankets to your bed. Now, come on. It's almost ridiculous. It's cold. They're going to be telling you to add extra blankets to your bed and wear a sweater because we're turning off the juice.
And
I
put some
think people could
socks
figure
on.
that out on their own, but that's okay. The government's here to help, and so are the utilities.
This is outrageous.
Close
Go ahead.
fireplace damper and doors when not in use unless you have a gas fireplace. Use draft stoppers for windows and doors. Turn off all unnecessary lights. It's Christmas time. It's Christmas. Don't mind that tree that you spent a lot of money for these days and hours putting up all the decoration and lights so you could sit back and watch the lights flash if you like flashing lights like I do. Oh, no. You got to turn that off according to the utility company. Run your dishwasher and dryers machines only when full. Only when full. Only when full. Don't do it partially full.
Mm-hmm.
Open curtains, drapes, and blinds in the daytime to let the sun in your home. Let's use the greenhouse gas effect and close them at night. These people think we're in kindergarten in addition to everything
They think
else.
we're stupid. We say that all the time.
They should just give us the power and we could figure it out on our own. We're paying a lot for power these days, right? Unbelievable. Furniture or drapes should not block air registers. You mean if you have forced hot air in your house, you don't want your drapes to block the hot air flowing into your house? you need to tell people this? This is a joke.
That's where we are.
Use microwave oven or a slow cooker, or prepare cold meals. Prepare cold meals. It is frigid outside. Was it like minus 30 in some parts of the country, right? Minus 30. So eat cold meals. Don't eat the soup, eat cold soup. What are these people talking about?
I don't know.
They're treating us, like you said, like we're stupid and like children.
Yep.
But also, it is just outrageous that in the United States in 2022, we have to worry about turning off heat in our homes because there's not enough power. And all the regulators and all the politicians know it. And their answer is eat a cold meal and you'll like it.
It's beyond outrageous. They're dictating people's regular habits in their own homes. And I say expect more, because this isn't going to get any better if these policies go through like the Democrats want them to. They despise coal and oil. They don't want any fossil fuels, period. Joe Biden is on record before he was elected president, no coal in America. They have a war on fossil fuels, and that's a war against families and against businesses. What if you work in that industry? They want to put you out of work. They want to put you out of a job. How does that work for your family, for you, your career? But here's the other thing, Dr. Tom. Keep in mind, I can't talk. Maybe I'm too cold in my own home.
Well, we do have it rather cold here, that's for sure.
Well, keep in mind, Dr. Tom, it's most important to have the power there when you need it, when these weather conditions are extreme, whether it's really hot or really cold. There is one situation that happened in Lexington, Kentucky, for example. I'm quoting here: a Lexington woman spent Saturday concerned about the possibility of a rolling blackout, plunging her home into dangerous cold like it did during the unplanned power outage on Friday night. Within 15 minutes, I started losing feeling in my hands, my feet. They started tingling. Margie Cook. This person's name was Margie Cook. In her own home. That's how cold it got. Now, CNN also reported on this, Dr. Tom, on the extent of the blackout hitting Kentucky. Quote, more than 50,000 people around the bluegrass state were without power Saturday morning, with the heaviest totals South Central Kentucky. Brownouts and absolute blackouts. The NFL's Tennessee Titans, they delayed its scheduled noon Central Time game by an hour due to temporary rolling blackouts in the region that stemmed from the winter storm and brutal cold. It's everywhere. This is a serious, serious problem. If you have small children, if you are elderly and you have to sit there in the dark or with no heat, can you imagine?
Well, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, could imagine because it happened to them.
It happened, yeah.
It happened to them. And this is not make-believe. This isn't a playground. This is reality. This actually happened. Now, many more states were affected when its power grid operator asked customers to cut back on power use. So we just mentioned the group that had actual blackouts, but no, it didn't stop there. Other areas of the country, the grid operator asked their power companies to contact their consumers, their customers, and say, turn down your power usage. Otherwise, there may be a blackout. So this is what also happened. 13 states in the PMJ interconnection grid operator region asked customers to cut back and warned blackouts could happen. So there you are, you have your Christmas Eve dinner, and all of a sudden you get either an alert or an email or a phone call, turn down your power, right? Unbelievable. Quote, and this is from a press release from the PMJ interconnection, that's the grid operator. in a large section of the country. Quote, a power grid operator for at least 13 states in the country, eastern half, asked customers to conserve power and set thermostats lower than usual from early Saturday to 10 a.m. on Sunday because usage was starting to strain capacity. Not enough power. So then, therefore, you have to go on a power diet. The operator, PJM Interconnection, serves 65 million people in all parts of Delaware, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and the District of Columbia. Not a small part of the country, right? Contacted, turn down your energy or there could be blackouts. The operator warned rolling blackouts could happen if the strain became too much. So
Wow.
again, summarize. Some states had total blackouts, and another big part of the country, they were warned to turn down energy, otherwise they could be subject to blackouts. The New England region was also affected, that's where we live, with natural gas being diverted to heat homes. Power was supplied by burning oil by the utilities to generate electricity. Burning oil, A, not green, and B, not efficient. That's not the fuel, the go-to fuel to generate power. But they had to in our region of the country because natural gas was being diverted from electricity generation. It was being diverted to heat homes under these extreme conditions. In fact, natural gas dropped to 15% of electricity generation from its usual level of about 50%. So normally 50% of the electricity in New England comes from natural gas. Well, under the extreme weather event, it was only 15%. So they had to make up the deficit. So they used oil. The oil used about 30% to 40% at one point in terms of the oil generating electricity, in terms of the percent. So natural gas went down to 15%, burning oil to generate electricity went into the 30 up to 40% of the electricity in our area. The grid operator also asked its utility companies to contact consumers and ask them to dial down the uses of electricity once again because of the possibility of blackouts.
Well, Dr. Tom, you have written about this like for years, but especially recently about the vulnerability of our power grid because of Green New Deal policies. Now, you were on Newsmax TV talking about all of this, the blackouts, especially before they happened. Here is Dr. Tom comparing U.S. electricity reliability to a third world nation on December 23rd.
Power grid and possible power outages. Let's welcome in Newsmax contributor Tom Borelli. Tom, this storm will likely strain our power grid. I mean, what effects will that have? Can we sustain it?
Hey, Lydia, great to be with you. Yeah, here's the problem with our current power grid. It is essentially a power grid of a third world nation. As long as the weather's fine, 70 degrees, everything's fine. But as soon as you have extreme weather events, there's not enough power to keep the juice on. We've seen this time and again over the last few years, especially in Texas a couple of years ago. So the problem is Green New Deal policies are pushing renewable energy, that's wind and solar, and pushing out coal and nuclear. And as a result, when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, there's not enough electricity. And this problem is especially acute in New England. In the year 2000, about 20% of New England's energy was generated by coal. Today, it's only 0.5%. That is a huge problem for consumers because New England has among the highest electricity prices in the nation.
And here is Dr. Tom on Christmas Eve. Yes, we've been working very hard in the Borelli household. Here you are predicting blackouts because of the polar vortex.
unveiled a $13 billion plan to modernize and expand our power grid. First of all, what is it? What are they going to do? What kind of projects? And is that going to help in these kind of situations? You know, we're lucky. You mentioned it's not prolonged, but it's also not wet. It's not pulling down, poles and power lines.
Yeah, the big problem here, and the Biden administration is not addressing this, it's a supply problem. This is the problem. When it gets extreme weather events, we don't have the energy, the amount of juice to supply when it's very, very extreme events. You mentioned Texas a couple of years ago. In Tennessee, they had a rolling brownouts last night and yesterday because they don't have enough supply. Again, this is the transition that they're forcing us into. They're forcing out reliable, on-demand energy like coal and nuclear and trying to replace it with renewable. And it gets very expensive. I mentioned New England. New England has among the highest electricity prices in the nation. And as you know, as being a former executive in Westchester County, you need low energy prices for businesses and for industry. So this is an economic problem as well as a safety problem. Again, we're lucky this is not going to be a prolonged cold weather event. And if you read even the information from the grid operators, they will say that we're okay as long as we don't have extended long cold. Well, that's not the way you plan for a country, right? You don't plan on the best case. You plan on what could happen in the worst case. And we're not ready for the worst case.
Yeah, praying for sun is not a plan. And you mentioned Westchester. Indian Point Nuclear Power Plant, New York State basically chased it out and shut it down. We'll see how that works out. Tom Borelli.
Yeah, this Green New Deal is it's like fantasy island. It's fantasy land, totally. I don't know what these people are thinking. Renewable sources of energy are not ready for prime time. We are seeing up close and personal. This is a test case study that we're seeing right now.
You would think,
Dr.
right?
Tom. Right now, we're seeing this. Everything we just laid out, brownouts, blackouts, people getting warnings and phone calls, turn it down, dial it down. Don't turn on your dishwasher. Don't turn on your washing machine. Turn out the light.
Eat a cold meal, Deneen, come on.
Wow. This is just crazy. I hope more and more people are realizing what is going on here. I hope folks are following this. You need to contact your representatives, especially if they're pushing for this Green New Deal stuff. You need to get off that couch, make some phone calls, go visit something, because this is bad. This is not good. And what is most concerning, Dr. Tom, and we talk about this all the time, but most concerning are the grid regulators. The politicians know that this is bad and they are ignoring reality.
Yeah, they write book reports. They write book reports, Deneen. We just said, if it gets cold, we're going to run out of power.
Well,
right?
Yeah. This reminds me of Ayn Rand. Here's a quote. You can avoid reality, but you cannot avoid the consequences of avoiding reality. Now let that sink in.
Right.
And folks are seeing up close and personal what is going on with our energy supply, and Democrats pushing Green New Deal fantasies. The reality is our power grid needs all types, all sources of energy, including coal and nuclear, to keep the lights running, to keep the lights on. Ignoring that reality will put Americans, families, businesses at risk, put them in the dark, costing lives during extreme weather events. And we're seeing it happening, especially in Buffalo, New York. Our thoughts and prayers for those families and for those individuals who have died because of the extreme weather conditions.
Yeah, this is absolutely a tragedy. And, going back to Ayn Rand, I mean, you could ignore reality. The reality is you need coal to get that on-demand power. You need nuclear for that on-demand power. But if you ignore that reality, you're going to end up with blackouts. And that's the consequence of ignoring basic reality. But the elected officials, these grid operators, they don't care because they're not doing anything about it. They're not saying, we need to bring up more coal. We need to make sure we keep nuclear. Not at all. In the New England region, by the way, And I think it's what I said on TV. In the year 2000, 20% of New England's electricity came from coal. Today, it's 0.5%, right? And then they wonder why there's not enough power. We've also lost nuclear power here as well in New England. So that's
Right.
the reality, and the consequence of reality is not enough power when you need it the most. So not only do we have this example, this recent polar vortex, as that you need power from coal and nuclear, and renewables ain't cutting it, but in the EU, they've just learned this lesson as well. They were dialing down their nuclear, and they were getting rid of coal because of their climate change agenda, right?
Yep.
Well, when Russia shut off the natural gas supply, now they're scrambling. So there was a story in Bloomberg News where Germany is now going back into coal and going back into nuclear. So Germany has learned that lesson, but Biden and the rest of the clowns running our government are ignoring that example as well. Again, this is not rocket science. This is right in front of our face. And the elected officials and the people they put on these commissions, they're all failing us.
Yep. And they don't care.
Right.
Which
And
is
if, in
terrible.
the EU and Germany, if the renewable energy didn't work there, how's it going to work here? Again, it doesn't. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. You don't even need a high IQ to figure that one out. You just need some good old common sense. And
Exactly.
unless the American people speak up, it's going to get worse, because President Biden, he wants our power grid to be powered completely by clean energy. So in some future date, no coal, no natural gas. I don't know what they're going to do with nuclear, but talk about blackouts, unbelievable. And again, the bottom line is Green New Deal policies, because of them, because of Biden, because of the Democrats, and this goes state people as well, state elected officials, beyond the federal authorities, behind federal representatives and senators, they are going to put lives at risk. You need power when you need it the most, with extreme cold or extreme heat. That's when you need the power for heat or air conditioning. And under Green New Deal, the power's not going to be there. The American people are going to suffer adverse health consequences, and also skyrocketing electricity prices. That's the bottom line. That's why we call this the Green New Deal fail.
Absolutely, Dr. Tom. Well, there you have it, folks. Thanks for checking out Reigniting Liberty. And remember, everyone has a role to play. What are you doing for liberty? Until next time.